Welcome to a Celtic State of Mind Matchday special. It's Motherwell v Celtic. I'm Paul John Dykes. I'm joined by Colin Watt, Danny Kelly and Lawrence Connolly for this must-win game. Gentlemen, how are you all?
Lads, doing well?
As well I am. Yes, as well I am. Hoping for a win.
I think a win is absolutely necessary today, Lawrence. Otherwise, there's going to be some massive changes during the international break, I would suggest. So yes, welcome everybody to the show. We are here every single weekday and then every match day. So thanks for joining us. You can comment on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Make your feelings known. Before we went live, we already had over 100 comments. The team lines are out. Colin, talk us through Celtic's lineup.
So we can see we brought the change in here today, and Ayer makes his way back into the squad, replacing Duffy. I think there's quite a few people out there that would agree that Duffy's probably came to a time where he needs to bed himself in, and either he becomes a mainstay or he gets a rest. Today's been given a rest for a big game. Beaton was probably the worst out of the two centre-halves, I think, on Thursday night. Boys, what do you think? Ayer's back in. Does he offer something different that Duffy doesn't?
Pace. We need it. Well, between Duffy and Beaton, no pace. Brown's your defensive mid, no pace. So it made us really susceptible to getting hit in the break. We've got two attacking fullbacks that push on, which would leave three at the back, your two centre-halves and Brown with no pace. So Ayer coming in is hopefully going to address that. Hopefully they play him on the right-hand side of the two centre-halves. Then you've got him and Frimpong quick there. You've got Diego that's going to offer a bit of pace on the left-hand side. And you've got Beaton, who he's always been a fairly steady performer for us. But, you know, I think that, yeah, definitely he's going to add a bit of pace, which we're going to need, especially if Tony Watt's starting against us. We know how quick he is.
Danny, what do you make of the centre-half partnership then? So we're seeing Ayer and Beaton, which I think might be the first time we've seen that partnership this season.
I'm actually looking forward to it. I honestly can't even pick out one good point from the Sparta game. Beaton looked completely lackadaisical. And Duffy looked confused for most of the game. He didn't know if Beaton was meant to be going back or he was meant to be going back, whereas I think Ayer takes a far stronger command of the game when he's a centre-half, and especially with Beaton, who hasn't been in the squad as consistently as him. I think Ayer's honestly hoping for the day that Julian's back, and hopefully that's soon. But I think against Motherwell, Beaton has proven before that he can easily take them on. So fingers crossed that we have a strong partnership there, and we've got Laxalt and Frimpong with hopefully decent pace up the wings to take them on.
Yeah, and we see that it is only the two changes from the side that played on Thursday night. Looking at the comments coming in, if you are watching on social media, give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe to us on A State of Mind YouTube. We're coming up to nearly 4,500 subscribers. It's fantastic. And we see the first comment coming in here from Stephen Mullen saying lazy team selection. That kind of hits the point I just made. We knew Thursday night was an appalling performance. The man for me that actually seemed to spark a bit of energy into the side was Lee Griffiths when he came on. He got his goal. He certainly looked as if he'd done a lot more in the first 15 minutes than what Edward had done in the first 45. And again, he finds himself on the bench and we see a Yeti up front. What do you make of that one?
Is Griffiths fit? That's a big question. Obviously him and Sutton have been having a bit of a ding-dong and Sutton's been criticising him. Griffiths always gives us goals and always tries hard. I think the problem is he's not lasting 90 minutes for whatever reason. You know, he's not getting a chance. But was it Milan he started again? I can't remember who he was started against. So for whatever reason, he's not fancy to give us 90 minutes because he definitely gives us impetus when he comes on and he gives us goals. He's not trusted to do that for 90 minutes for whatever reason. Ayeti, he played up front. Was it Leo? You know, he looked decent. Mm-hmm. He's got an understanding with Elyounoussi from his time at Bal. I think this is a fitness choice as opposed to a straight selection. If both of them were fit, I think we'd be starting Griff, wouldn't we?
And what we've seen on Thursday night was a complete blatant attack on Lee Griffiths by Chris Sutton. Yeah. I think quite a few of his comments were actually pretty much out of order. Lee Griffiths has shown he's got that hunger for coming back. He knows his way to goal. And he's desperate to try and get back in it. He's found his way into the Scotland squad again. Danny, were the comments from Sutton on Thursday night justified? I wouldn't think so.
No, absolutely not. Sutton's completely in the wrong. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I understand that Sutton comes from a time when it was you know, they were going hell for leather, and they were coming up against really, really strong squads. And I don't know if it's the fact that Sutton thinks that we should just be walking over teams every single week and that we don't need Griffiths, but clearly on Thursday we proved that we do. Griffiths coming back into that squad changed that game, and I think it was only 3 minutes he was on the pitch, and he was chasing down the keeper. As I said many times on the podcast, Griffiths is the only man who does that. He runs at them, he puts them under pressure. We're not putting anybody under pressure, and that's what you need. We need mistakes, because right now we're just looking so complacent. There's no pressure being put on the other teams. They're basically like inviting them to just come in, take a shot, and, you know, we'll start playing when we're 2-0 down.
Well, you can't question his attitude when he's on the park.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We need more of that attitude on the park. Obviously, Sutton's questioning why he's not fit, and we don't know what the issues are, why he's not fit. But
he looks fit.
My concern with that comment, Lawrence, it was similar to the comments we got, Colin, you know, after the Aberdeen result by someone who's very close to Neil Lennon, is that you often get that impression that it's the thoughts of Neil Lennon. You know, Chris Sutton and Lenny are tight. So if Sutton's focusing on that instance of Griffiths' fitness, which, by the way, was nowhere near the list of priorities on that particular occasion, on that night and after that performance, neither was El Younus's mobile phone usage either, but I can understand the point.
Yeah.
If Sutton's pinpointing that, then for me, that's coming out of the Lennon camp.
Well, I mean, when you look at it, like the least worst thing about that performance on Thursday night was Elyounoussi looking at his phone, and that seemed to be a focus for a lot of people. And I think I seen Paul Lambert say Jock Stein would be ashamed.
That was a ridiculous comment.
What was that about? There was no mobile phones even in Jock Stein's day.
Listen, we don't know who's checking on the phone. I really care more about what happens on the park than when they're sitting and being subbed off it. It's the problems that we've got on the parks rather than about somebody that's been subbed. And who knows what he's checking his phone? Is he checking the score? Is he checking his family? Who knows? And
exactly, Lawrence. Exactly.
Really,
See,
who cares?
The big thing for me on the Friday, I was speaking to Jim Orr about it, and I think I said that exact point, Lawrence. You know, for me, that is nowhere near in the realms of concerns for me. No. But what it does do on reflection, is it shows yet another instance of Celtic's players and undermining Neil Lennon, let's say. So obviously it's a club rule not to be doing that, right? So you're not sitting in the dugout, you're not sitting in the stand with your phone. Broken a club rule, as did Bolingoli. Obviously that was a bigger rule that he broke, and then Griffiths coming back unfit from pre-season. And it's that constant undermining that I think's the issue. The mobile phone in isolation isn't a big issue, but it's quite clear to me that this culture change that Neil Lennon's talking about is the fact that the players are not responding to his management.
Well, Paul, that's an interesting point, and what comes across to me today is we're seeing a lot of comments coming in on social media, and please continue. We love seeing your thoughts on the side. People saying it's a lazy team selection. A lot of people expecting to see a lot of changes from the team that got beat on Thursday night. And the one that we see on the screen now, it's a comment from Eddie Cantwell saying Griffiths was the scapegoat. And we've seen that quite a few times this season. But what does Turnbull have to do to get a game? I mean, there's a boy there that's coming into midfield. We've seen some performances so far this season, and Cham's been dropped. Brown, I didn't think had a great game on Thursday night, and we've got a lad there that we've paid £3 million for, knows the Motherwell side inside out, and on a game like today where he can go and make a name for himself, he's found himself on the bench again.
But Brown's probably the way we play. Having a slow defensive midfielder, it takes a lot of Callum's game away from him because he's having to cover up. As you say, he could have slotted in for Brown. He knows Motherwell. He's proven at this level. He can do it. What does he have to do to get a game? I don't know. Paul's touching on the culture change. Lenny's come out and said culture change. Maybe that's why we're expecting loads of changes. But what can he do to change it as a club? The first team culture. What can you do to change it? It's change the personnel either in the team. We've not done that. You can change the manager or the guys that have the wrong cultures. We don't change either of them, but somehow they magically change their attitude.
See, the big thing, Lawrence, for me when it comes to that comment, that was the most concerning comment for me after the game, because you can imagine a big liner like the Titanic trying to turn in the ocean, how long that takes. That's how long a culture can change at a club with the same personnel. So the knee-jerk reaction to a culture change normally happens with a change in management. So I almost felt as though Lenny was putting himself up on the chopping block by saying that, because players that you already have, and we're not going to be strengthening anytime soon, but the players that you already have, to change that culture with all the same staff and all the same management is a big, big ask. As I say, you can imagine a big liner in the ocean trying to make a turn. It's not something that you can just change in 3 days. I was really shocked at that comment.
Yeah, I mean, for me, at the end of the day, the culture comes down to the manager and what he sets out. If you follow the manager's instructions, he is setting the culture in that side. We go back to Ronnie Dyler. He was all about fitness. Remove things from the dinner room. He introduced different things into the training, all to get players fit. When Brendan Rodgers came in, he was all about trying to be the best that you can be, being better than Celtic. And you've seen that with the likes of Stuart Armstrong, Kieran Tierney, all moved on to other sides, trying to better themselves. What is Neil Lennon's culture? What has he brought into the side? Because at the end of the day, the culture's set by the management team. It's not set by the players themselves.
Colin, see, the culture had to change when Ronnie Dyler came in, but the culture was changing from Neil Lennon's culture. Have we gone back to that? That again is a concern of mine.
Yeah.
Because everybody's seen the sea change when Brendan Rodgers came in. I think it was more subtle when Ronnie Dyler came in, because it was far more to do with conditioning, this 24-hour athlete. He spoke about it time and time again, didn't he?
Yep.
But when Rodgers came in, it was a total sea change in culture. And I think we've not brought it up. So we're not saying that we know what's happening behind the scenes. This has been brought up by the manager, saying that there needs to be a culture change. That's a huge concern for me, because without change, it takes a long time to change the culture.
Well, any culture's only by consent. The players have to go to whatever standards, but players should have their own standards. Look at Reaper when he was at the club. If it was 100 press-ups, Reaper done 150. There was a professional about that guy. He was going to be the best. He was going to do over and above whatever the standards were. Are the players doing it? Or are they just going, things are a bit lax, we can get away with not doing it? That's their professional standards. And I think we can see that, there's a number of players where their standards have dropped. So that's professionally. Yeah, the manager's job's to get the best out of them. But it's not all in Lenny. There's some players there that aren't. And it happened under Delia. There was a group of players that just said, don't care what your standards are, we're just going to operate at our standards. He lost the dressing room, Delia. I think wrongly. And I think Celtic got rid of all but one of that group of players after that.
Yeah, you're right. Now, Chick Cameron's commented on Facebook, welcome to the show. Chick Cameron took me to my first Celtic game in 1987. How great is that?
That's impressive.
That's my godfather. Brilliant. Duffy getting dropped is a great call. He's been murdered from the first game. I think we're now in a dilemma with Duffy. We brought him in. It's almost as if we put all our eggs in the one basket with Duffy, because he was people look at him, he's just a loan. But there's a loan fee, obviously, and there's big wages attached to that. And we've got Duffy for the entire season. It's not worked out in terms of the form. I think Lenny was right to keep him in the team, Colin. But after the performance of the night, and yet another example of fundamental defensive frailties, it's right to drop him. I'm delighted Ayer's back in. I'm a big fan of Ayer. But again, it's another partnership that haven't played together at the centre of the defence. So that again is a concern. I'm looking at Laxalt, who I think defensively and offensively is superb. Frimpong, not so much. I think he's good going forward. And even then, there's questions on his distribution. But again, for me, my biggest concern looking at that team line today is once again the defence.
Well, what you've got there in that defence is you're playing a 4-2-3-1 today, and you've got Laxalt on the left-hand side and Frimpong on the right-hand side. Now, the thing that both of them offer you in abundance is an attacking threat, and that's what their key prerogative is to go forward. They want to go forward. They want to get the balls into the box. They want to be the player that sets up the goal. Laxalt offers a bit more defensively than what Frimpong does, but when you look at sides the Celtic sides over the last sort of 5-10 years, we've always had one fullback that was bombing forward, and the other one sort of got to the halfway line and just went, that's as far as I'll go. And the balance of the defence for me is not working. It's just not came together yet. We've tried the three at the back, Ayer, Duffy, Julian, Ayer, Elhamed, Julian. We've tried a combination of a lot of things. This is another new centre-half combination today. I think we've got to sort of rein it in a wee bit until we get a solid back four and we stop conceding goals. Then I would maybe pull the fullbacks back a bit and try and get more coming from your midfield. Get your midfield to create more and don't rely on the likes of Frimpong and Laxalt to try and set them up, because if they get caught out at the back like we did several times over the last couple of games, we're leaving two in the centre half positions, which is kind of becoming a big issue for us, and we're conceding a lot of goals.
I hope somebody else comes into the broadcast studio, because we're sitting on 666 live viewers, and I don't want any I don't want any omens today of all days. Talking to phones though, Colin, I mean, I think in isolation, no big deal, but if you look at the wider issues that perhaps Neil Lennon has referred to a couple of times, particularly after the Ferencváros game, you can look into the comments that Neil Lennon has made without making anything up or listening to gossip or whatever goes around the WhatsApp groups. Now, I think Michael the Boys made a good point on Twitter. Stevie Clark must think Griffiths is fit.
Yeah. I mean, he's not going to call him into the squad, and especially, we spoke about this on the Insomniac podcast the other day. Scotland are going to be travelling.
That's a shameless plug.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to watch it, it's the Football Insomniac on A State of Mind. It goes out every Wednesday. But we were speaking about Scotland having to travel 6,000 miles in the next 6 days to play 3 games. Really, I mean, they could play 300 minutes. And Steve Clark thinks that Lee Griffiths can play a part in that. He can be a key player. But yet, when it comes to it, he's not getting a start for Celtic. You look at the guys that's in that squad, Lyndon Dykes, Lawrence Shankland, guys that we would say that Lee Griffiths is a far better striker than, but he can't get a game for Celtic at the minute. And to me, he's the only striker we have that's actually on form.
Oh, he's scoring goals and he's got great attitude, but we don't know if he's going to start for Scotland. We don't know if it's going to be the same situation.
Yeah, he'll come on in like the 60th minute and be expected to be the game changer. And don't get me wrong, for years there's been people like, Solskjaer and those guys who came on as the super sub and entirely changed the game. And I think that's what Scotland is also needing, as a game changer, because watching Scotland and Ireland at international level is one of the probably most boring things in existence. But hopefully Griffiths can make a change. But that's the thing, if Griffiths does have good games for Scotland, is he then going to get put back into the first team above a Jetty and Edward?
The big thing is, I mean, I remember looking at the 4 strikers that we had, and we were looking at that at the time when Griffiths wasn't anywhere near the first team. And we were looking at the fact that Klimala had started scoring a couple of goals here and there. He'd obviously come back well conditioned, great attitude by all accounts. And Griffiths was the 4th choice. I think he's done remarkably well since he come in, but he's not played a great deal of minutes. But he makes an impact. And you're absolutely right, Danny. When he comes on, he gets in about these defences. I mean, this game today is going to be extremely difficult for Celtic, because Robinson, he can get a team organised, and they all play to their strengths. And I actually think he's an excellent manager, one of the best managers in our league. And I don't think he'll stay at Motherwell too much longer. But when I'm looking at that team, my biggest surprise is, and I'm always loath to drop 4 and 5 players, because sometimes, that's an even bigger issue. You're trying to get a blend, you're trying to get some kind of momentum. I think the shape's an issue. We're playing Frimpong again, as a right back, basically. He's never a right back. He is nowhere near being a right back. And you've got Elhamed, who is a right back, an international player in that position, and he's sitting on the bench. You've got Ajeti playing up front on his own. He's looked ineffective when he's been playing as a lone striker, yet he's playing up front on his own. And we've got Griffiths sitting there not getting a sniff. So I've got major concerns once again with Neil Lennon's inability to identify what the real issues are. A lot of the other comments coming through is around McGregor and Brown, and how they're almost omnipresent on that team sheet. Would you have brought in Turnbull today? Would be a big question for me.
I would have.
Yep.
100%.
For Brown.
For Scott Brown?
Yep.
Danny, aye, for Brown.
Yeah.
Yep.
What does he need to do? What does he need to do to get the game? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look as though, strangely, he's in Neil Lennon's plans. We waited a year on this kid. The boy's the most promising Scottish youngster in the league, yet he's struggling to get minutes. And and we're struggling in that department. And I think today, of all days, also the added needle that it's against his former club, I'd have thrown him in there today.
Well, I'm looking at that Motherwell side today, and they're playing a 4-3-3. We've not really spoke about Motherwell so far, but if you look at it, they've got basically their third choice goalkeeper in goal. who's by all accounts apparently 6'8" and 18 stone, so he might be a hard one to get the ball past. But we're looking at Campbell, Maguire, and Polworth as their midfield, and up front they've got Callum Lang, Tony Watt, and Devante Cole. So they're really going for this today. And then you kind of look at the Celtic side, and it looks as if they're going to go for it. So by all accounts, you're thinking this is going to be quite an entertaining game. But when you've got that three and up front for them, I'm still wanting to offer that defensive cover for Celtic. But what I need to see from Brown today is I need to see him winning 50-50s. I need to see him being commanding. I need to see him going in and actually leading the squad. I don't know if anybody's had the chance to see it, but there was a video released by Liverpool, and it was Jordan Henderson from the game through the week when they played in the Champions League. And the way he talked his team through the game, encouraging them, getting them forward, and they showed quite a lot of passion, and they went on to win the game. I want to see that from Brown. I want to see him being the leader that we know he can be.
Well, again, he flatters to deceive so many times. You know, I've seen him the other night in Europe. I mean, we were absolutely embarrassed on Thursday night, and you're looking at people like Scott Brown to be that man, Colin, and he didn't do it. I was also looking to Shane Duffy when he came in. I mean, we've got the Republic of Ireland's captain at the heart of our defence, and he's having a torrid time at it, and no matter if it's Europe or in the domestic game. So I think there is an opportunity for certain people to stand up and be counted here. Another player, just looking at him on the screen there, that I'm surprised is in based on his performance, powder puff performance of the other night, is Tom Roderick. Now, you can't say that, but he set up 4 goals in the 2 games before it. He was anonymous on Thursday night. You can't pick and choose in this team, and then we've got Turnbull sitting on the bench, not getting a look. I mean, I don't think there's enough change, and I don't mean just in personnel. I think in the actual shape. The shape's not working, but let's just hope that it works. Seems to be the mantra of Neil Lennon and the coaching staff. What we always do before every game, Colin, is we ask for some predictions. We've had some incredibly high scoring predictions. The other night there, I would have been happy with a 1-0, I said before the game. I was nowhere near getting it. So I'll start off with you, Danny. Normally you're quite a positive individual. What's your prediction for today's game?
Well, for Thursday I said 3-1, and I forgot to say it should have been the Celtic. I'm gonna. Do you know what? I'm gonna go 3-1 Celtic again.
3-1 Celtic. The Motherwell goal coming for Tony Watt, probably.
No, Liam Polworth.
Right. And Lawrence, what about yourself?
3-1. A jetty to spark us. I just can't see this defence not losing a goal, especially with the pace Motherwell have.
And Colin, what's your thoughts on the outcome of this game?
I mean, after suggesting that both teams are really going to be going for it here, it would be boring to suggest a 0-0 or a 1-0. So I think Celtic need to come out the blocks. They need to prove that Lennon was right in what he said, and he's got a grip on this team, and we can get a performance out of the players that really haven't been given us it so far. So in that sense, my heart says 4-2 Celtic, but I think there might be just the odd goal in it.
We've seen so many different types of outcomes at Fir Park over the years, you know, everything from 7-0s to 4-4s and 3-3s. I can see it being quite a high scoring game because, as Lawrence says, we haven't plugged that gap at the back. We didn't really focus on Bain, but again, there's another topic of conversation after shipping 4 goals the other night. Barkas, £4.5 million goalkeeper sitting on the bench. All of these things may be even more under the spotlight after the game, depending on how this goes. The other thing I would ask is, you know, if the unthinkable happens today and Celtic don't get a win, where do we go from here, Colin?
I think this is the perfect time. If we need to, then we make the change. We've got the international break coming up. We've got two weeks to sort of make sure that we get the right man in, if that's the case. We cannot afford to drop points today. We drop points today, Rangers will beat Hamilton. There's absolutely no doubt about it, and we will end up double figure points behind Rangers. At this point in the season, it's just completely unacceptable, especially with the importance of what this season is. So for me, no excuses. It has to be 3 points today, and I'm not even sure if in the long run that'll be enough for Lennon to keep his job.
Danny, what's your thoughts on that? There's been a lot of talk, obviously, during the 3-3 game up at Pittodrie. I made my feelings known. They've not actually changed. And obviously that's now crept into the wider media, with many people questioning Neil Lennon and Lenny responding to that in his press conferences. If we don't get something from today,
don't get me wrong, and I'm not one of these people who says that if you think someone should go or you think something needs to change, that you're less of a Celtic fan. I think if it's not working and the dressing room aren't responding to his tactics and his managerial style, it's time to shake things up. It's time to go.
Lawrence, what's your thoughts? I know, and by the way, I would like to say I'm a massive Neil Lennon fan as well. I know that you have been very supportive when the talk of the future has been discussed. What happens after today? And this isn't me being negative and all this kind of stuff. This is a game. We've gone 6 games with 1 win, and we can't go 7. As far as I'm concerned, we cannot go a 7th game without another win today.
If a change of manager's needed, you're going to do it either international break or January. So if we lose today, you're either saying it's a quick change of manager, or we're going to give him to January. Lenny might not say that's not fair, and I probably agree with him. It's not fair. He probably deserves a better chance, but he's given a lot to Celtic. But you know what? World's not fair, and it's if we don't win the day, I can't see him surviving it. And Double D was over on Thursday. I can't imagine him being a happy camper. You're not telling me Celtic haven't had some conversations in the background, or a plan A, B, and C that's going to be go-to, depending on the result of this game.
Celtic always have to have a contingency plan and a succession plan as well, Lawrence. So let's go to the action. We're lining up to face Motherwell today. It's going to be a tough one, and we'll be back at half-time for comments from Colin Watt, Danny Kelly and Lawrence Connolly. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you at half-time. Hopefully we can talk about a positive first half performance. Thanks all for joining us, and we'll be back at quarter